Does it feel like every part of your life is divided? Every scenario, every environment, your church, your school, your work, your friends, left, right, conservative, liberal, religious, secular. It seems you always have to take a side. This is a conversation between a progressive Christian and a conservative atheist who happen to be great friends. Welcome to Living on Common Ground.
Do you think if we met today, we would still be friends?
I don't know, but we're friends now.
A mob is no less a mob because they're with you.
Man, so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man.
So, I am enjoying the Jordan Peterson lectures. Thanks again for that.
But you're failing some of the tests.
Well,
we need to let everyone know.
But here's the thing. Yes, I am one of those that if I'm going to watch the lecture and there's a test afterwards, I'm taking the test. Like, you don't have to. It's not like you're getting a grade or anything like that.
I didn't even know they existed.
So each lesson comes with a quiz.
Sure. Which makes sense. It's supposed to be kind of laid out like a university.
Well, yeah, and plus I think that for some having taking a quiz actually helps you remember the concepts.
Yeah, it embeds it.
Right. And that's like for me, that's why I have this little black notebook here because writing things down embeds it for me.
Yeah, sure.
And then of course, if you really want me to learn something, draw a model.
Sure.
You make a model, and that's a way to get me.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I did. I failed one of the quizzes. I got a 60. Okay.
It's not a fail. It's D.
Is that a D? In my mind, that's an F.
It's a D minus.
Well, I guess. Okay. But a couple points I want to make. First of all, there's only 5 questions. So you missed 2 and you're done. But overall, this is what a geek I am.
I don't think less of you, Jeff.
Well, you shouldn't. And here's why. Now you'll think less of me when I tell you this story.
Okay.
So I added up all of my scores and divided by how many quizzes I've taken to see that my overall course right now is an 85.
You're keeping track of your GPA with the Peterson University. That's great.
Isn't that sad?
No, it's not sad. I think that's great. I think that's very...
I'm not doing as well as I did in seminary.
That is on brand.
When I was in seminary, I had, I graduated with a 4 no, not a 4 point. You couldn't get anything above a 4.0 in seminary. I graduated with a 3 point, I think it was a 3.85. That's what I graduated seminary with.
It's impressive.
And right now in Jordan Peterson University, I've got an 85. So I've got some work to do to pull that up. I'm hoping that the final exam
it'll be weighted.
Yeah.
You're not being graded on a curve. You got no curve to
There is
to
no
help
curve.
out.
I know. We don't have any morons taking the test too.
I know.
That would
At least not that we know.
Right. So anyway, I wanted to talk about one of the concepts that he discussed in his lecture that I was watching today. And as you pointed out,
this is the Sermon on the Mount lecture.
Yeah, it's the Sermon on the Mount lecture, and it's really fascinating. One of the things I like about it is one of the things I'm really enjoying about the Jordan Peterson lectures, this one in particular, is that I've heard a plethora of information on things like the Sermon on the Mount.
Sure.
Right? Because I've been you go through seminary and you read the books and you read all the different commentaries and all that kind of stuff. And so I've got a lot of theological insight. I've got a lot of historical insight into it. You get all of that stuff. But what I'm really appreciating is the psychological way he's reflecting on it.
Yeah.
Right? Through his expertise.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And so I'm taking a ton of notes. And it's funny because sometimes, my initial reaction is, I don't know about that when he says something. But then if I allow myself to just say, okay, what insight is he sharing here from his perspective? It's really enlightening.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was talking today about, well, first of all, he was talking about the judge not lest ye be judged, right?
Yeah.
Don't judge unless you're willing to be judged. And he says, and one of the things he pointed out is he's not saying don't judge, period. What he's saying is that understand that the way that you judge is the way that you will be judged. And I think that's a really interesting distinction. And it's also true. Right? I think that the grace that you show someone, it will often be the grace that they'll give back to you.
That's an interesting point because it makes me think about something I've thought of Jesus's teachings for quite a while, which is that if I let my eyes metaphorically kind of go on unfocused, and I think of a lot of the parables, this particular Sermon on the Mount, these types of things, instead of thinking of them necessarily as admonitions, and instead thinking of them as that it's propositional. It's that it's an argument about how the world works. For instance, the parable of the servants with the talents. When I'm young, I'm taught, and I think for a lot of people continue to be taught, that with the parable of talents, that there is a character, a personality called God that will respond in these ways. You'll be punished for hiding your talent. You'll be rewarded for blah, 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 right? And when I just when I read that again as an adult, like older, well, not older adult, but 30-something adult, and read it, I thought, oh my gosh, that's just life. That is how life works. Whatever you fear, you create. Whatever you try to resist, you end up creating. So if you have very little, and also, and Peterson talks about this with the parable of the talents, that it's just a great representation of the Pareto principle, that from whom has the least, it will be taken away from you. And to whom has the most, more will be added. That's just how the Pareto principle works. It's not some sort of punitive and reward system. It's just, you need to recognize that if you're at the bottom of the Pareto principle, it's real easy for you to continue to fail, really hard for you to succeed. You can, but you got to be really, really careful as you're climbing. Once you're at the top of it, it's hard for you to fail, easy for you to succeed. And this is in every endeavor. He talks about this in every creative endeavor. It does have to do with money, but it doesn't just have to do with money. It has to do with everything. Influence, creativity, everything. And so anyway, my point just being that is another example of how when I'm reading these, like the Sermon on the Mount, if I read it as this is just how the world works, if you are a judgmental person, you're going to get it back. And it's this like feedback loop. And it's very difficult to tell which came first, the judging or the being judged.
Right. Yeah, because the more grace that you give, the more grace you receive, the more grace you're apt to give. The more judgment you receive, the more judgment you give, which means the more judgment you're going to receive.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can hear the voice already saying, in every case, Lucas, in every case, Jeff, I can think of these exceptions where that doesn't happen. And that is not the point.
Right.
The point is, this is in general how the world works. And you can kind of grasp onto these principles and use them to help.
Well, and
live better.
That's the thing too. The exception doesn't determine the principle.
Right.
Yeah. So, but along those same lines, he's been talking about a lot of different things. And one of the things he talks about is that how heaven as a concept is the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you, and then what we should do is try to align ourselves with the ideal and live towards the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how sometimes, most of the time, we can't just all of a sudden be the ideal. And so you have to begin to identify what are some things that I can do differently. What are some things that I can give up? What are some things that I can start to do?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that will help me move towards the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, and then what the interesting thing, and I thought this isn't in my notes. This is just from memory this morning. But one of the things he talked about was, then what you do is you find yourself that even though you haven't reached the ideal, you're in the right place.
Mm.
You're already in the right place because you're moving towards the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting. Then, and I want to get, there's a certain thing I want to get to because I want to hear your thoughts on it. But then he talks about this idea that he brings in Kant, which we were talking about before we started recording, and that there's this categorical imperative, the universal moral law, and that what Kant advocated for was acting in ways that, if universally followed, would result in the best outcome for all.
Yep.
And I think that's true. And I also think that's when I talk about flourishing, that's what I'm talking about. I also would argue that that's what we see in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it also then requires self-sacrifice, which goes against Hobbes, who talks about in nature, it's actually eat or be eaten.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right. And I think that is actually going against the telos of what seems to me is even evident in evolution, especially when you think about evolution in terms of community.
Yeah.
Try the move from, well, I know we've talked about this probably ad nauseum now, but when you look at who constitutes my community, how it continues to grow, because we understand, and then as it continues to grow, we begin to understand the necessity of contributing to the overall because of okay. So anyway, all that.
Well, and just for anybody listening who's not familiar with Immanuel Kant and this concept, a really simple example of the point that he makes is, because this whole thing is, you can determine what's right and wrong by taking it to its extreme. Assume everyone in the society does the thing. Does it break down society, or does it make society better? And so a really easy one you can do, as an example for anybody listening, is you can just take the example of telling the truth or telling lies. So if it's a thought experiment, if every single person in society always told the truth, forget about whether or not they would or not. The point of the thought experiment is that they would. If they always told the truth, would that generally make society stronger, or would it break it down? And then go the opposite. If every single person always lied, would that make the society stronger or break it down? And so you take it to that extreme, and you can see it becomes very clear the point he's making. If everybody always lied, it would be impossible to have social cohesion. If everybody told the truth, yes, there would be other ramifications. Yes, that I can already hear people saying.
That might actually also fight against social.
But I think on balance, it's pretty easy to say it would cause greater social cohesion than the opposite, which is everyone always lying.
Right.
And so that's how Immanuel Kant determines universal moral codes. Is that kind of that thought experiment? And so I just wanted to kind of give a primer for anybody who's listening that is not necessarily familiar with Kant. Or
do you want to talk about Hobbes real quick too, since I brought him up?
Yeah, Hobbes is one of my favorites. I in a class that I teach for homeschoolers, I teach a bit of his work, Leviathan, which is kind of one of his seminal works. And his conceptualization of human nature is that the the baseline, the default of human nature is essentially constant war. It is in nature. It is all against all. Because his primary position is that everyone, all of existence, wants to continue to exist. And so every individual wants to continue to live. Therefore, every individual primarily, and they might have secondary motivations as well, but their primary motivation is to live. And so when you have multiple organisms wanting to continue to live and needing resources to do so and having finite resources, it inherently means everyone is out for themselves first and has to take from others, which causes inherent conflict. And then Leviathan goes through the steps of how then you come to have what he calls the Commonwealth, which is people coming together in order to protect themselves by having greater numbers. And then there's a whole bunch of detail in there in the work that is really fascinating. And I think the thing is, this is why philosophy majors will always be talking, because I think he has really great points too. I think he has some solid logic behind his points as well. And I'd love to have somebody who's a Kantian, debate against a Hobbesian and see where they could agree, where they would definitely clash, and all of that.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards Kant.
Sure.
And so then, of course, logically brings us to Dostoevsky.
Logically.
Yeah.
It's a direct line.
Yeah, right.
It's Kant, Hobbes. Maybe you make a quick pit stop at Locke, and then you're right on to Dostoevsky.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think
and then Strezov.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We can just completely leave out Jung.
Sure. Jung made no contributions to the field of psychology or philosophy,
right?
Human nature at all.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, all of this though goes back to Stoicism.
All of it.
Modern
for now until next year.
Modern psychiatry is completely based on Stoicism.
Obviously, all of it.
I think so. Anyway, all right. So the other thing that Peterson, and we'll get to Dostoevsky here in a second. I think so, because that wasn't just a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
So he, in the process of talking about the Sermon on the Mount, Peterson he kind of gets to the idea of resentment and ideals.
Yeah.
And what he talks about is that, again, remember, heaven is the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he also talks about how then hell is this idea that there is something worse than death. And so we kind of exist between those two extremes.
Yeah, it's the polar opposite of the ideal.
Right. And so whether or not you believe that there are actual places, we're talking about like how we function in this world from a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay.
And I think at some point, this is what's happened to me, the resident atheist.
Yeah.
Is that at some point I went, there needs to be this other category. It's not neuropsychology. It's not exactly psychology. It's kind of psyche. It's kind of, emergent from all these psychological principles. Maybe you might call it spiritual. All right, go ahead.
No, I firmly believe that there's a divine aspect, but I'm not necessarily talking about an other being.
No, I just it's a categorical question for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I also think that the little bit I know, that Sam Harris might agree with you.
Sure.
Which is getting him in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Because his real hardcore atheists are turning on him a bit.
You always get in big trouble from your own side if you give any.
Have you? And I know we're digressing here from. Have you seen the trouble that Bill Maher's getting into lately?
I've been watching that for the last few years. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Which one are you talking about? Because he won't condemn Trump because he went to have dinner with him, even though he completely still disagrees with him on so many different things.
Well, just the way the progressives now are accusing him of not being progressive.
Right. Him, Joe Rogan, who has been, he's been a liberal leftist since the 90s, right? Sympathetic to Bernie Sanders, he's considered right wing now. There's a whole host. I mean, Brett Weinstein and Heather Hine, they're long. I mean, like they're decades old liberals, right? And then now they're considered right wing,
which is interesting to me. Maybe this could be another topic for another day.
Yeah,
but it seems interesting to me that those of us who have been considered to be more progressive are now being viewed as moderate, or by some even conservative.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, and
it's an interesting thing to observe, especially from like a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah,
like what does that mean for the shift of our culture?
Yeah,
it's a little scary, I think, if we're going to be honest.
Sure.
Okay, different topic.
Yeah.
Let me finish this one.
Okay.
So the idea of resentment and ideals, and again, so we look at heaven as this representation of the ideal.
Yeah.
And then what he talks about is that the further we identify ourselves from being from the ideal, if it becomes so unattainable, we run the risk of resenting it. And not only do we resent it, we begin to attack it, to destroy
Put
it.
ourselves in opposition to it.
Yes. And
actually, it's better to not be healthy. For instance, you might say an ideal of health. There might be an ideal of health. And then you might get so far as to say, actually,
you can be too healthy.
Actually, it's better. It's actually an indication of some sort of character defect if you care too much about being healthy, and if you care about being healthy at all, right? There's this, and maybe you're getting to this, so I apologize if I'm stepping on your point here. But one of the things that Peterson has, I would say, taught me. It's something that goes along with kind of my temperament anyway, so so that helps. But it's the thing that he talks about all the time, which is if you're going to make some sort of change, and he pulls from his psychological discipline, like his actual practice, because he's been in practice for like 30, 40 years, something like that.
He talks about some of that.
And that is, if you're going to make any kind of change, you have to start with the smallest change that you can make and that you would make. Because otherwise, exactly what you're talking about, you could say, here's my ideal. My ideal is, I don't know. My ideal is I'm going to work out 7 days a week, whatever. But right now I don't do anything. Okay. That's so far away. It might as well be a dream. And you can imagine becoming resentful of the fact that you feel insecure from it. You feel like, what's wrong with me? You feel like it's too much. It's for other people. It actually is hurting my feelings because I'm not where I should be. And you can become resentful of that kind of thing. And then you can become in opposition to it. And he talks all the time about how that can't be your first step. Your first step might just be literally buying some clothes to go to the gym in.
Yeah.
The absolute smallest thing.
Yeah.
In order to make those steps.
Yeah. Yeah. He shares a story about a guy who's in his 30s that still lived with his mom and refused to clean his room. Like he was still like a teenager. And he brought the vacuum. He's like, I'm going to clean my room. He brought the Have you heard this story?
I've heard this
Brought
story.
the vacuum, put it in the doorway, and then spent 2 weeks just stepping over the vacuum into his dirty room. And so finally they had to agree, will you at least put your socks away? You can leave the rest of the room exactly the way it is, right? Just put his sock away. And he goes, it seemed silly, but that's what they had to do. So that goes back to this idea that then but if you can say, okay, for me, I need to put socks away. Then when you do, you're in where you need to be, even though you haven't reached the ideal.
And it takes a level of that's humility. Humility is allowing yourself to be the fool, being ridiculous and small. And it kind of feels like, ugh, what's wrong with me?
Right.
But,
Yeah.
But if you can be humble in that, if you can humble yourself to do that, well, then exactly what you're saying. Now you're on the path, and the path is the only point.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because ideally, your ideal should always be slightly out of reach. Right? Because, and just let me finish this thought, because I'm going to get to that, how it should always be slightly out of reach, right? So it has to be attainable, but it has to always be slightly out of reach, because if it becomes completely unattainable, you resent it and you try to kill it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the story of Cain and Abel, is what he suggests. Right. And then then Cain kills Abel, but then what does he have left? And he says, oh my gosh, this is unbearable to me. When all of a sudden there is no ideal that you're shooting for, it becomes an unbearable life. So if your ideal is so close that you can attain it, then once you have it, your life becomes unbearable. And this is where he talks about, and this is where I was saying Dostoevsky. Is it called Letters from the Underground?
Yes. Actually, I think that is what it is. Letters from the Underground. Yeah.
Hey,
well done.
Congratulations, me.
Yeah.
Because I like Tolstoy better. Anyway, but I've read Dostoevsky and I like it.
Yeah.
I like him. So anyway, because if you attain it, then all of a sudden you begin to destroy it. Because we also need adventure. We all, like, as humans, we also need like the challenge.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that was raised, and that is, how would Dostoevsky, I'm just putting you on the spot here, how does he talk about that?
Well, he says that if humans were given paradise, the very first thing we would do would be to break it.
Which is probably the story of Adam and Eve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've heard Peterson talk about the fact that you can think of this from a neurochemical perspective as well, which is that all of everything that drives humans is about reaching for the goal. It's not actually about having the goal. We think the satisfaction comes from having the goal, getting to the mountaintop, having the money that we're trying to strive for, having the influence that we're trying to strive for, getting the girlfriend, getting the whatever it is.
Right.
But actually everything, if you want to think of from a psychic perspective, from a spiritual perspective, or from a neurochemical perspective, actually all the stuff is for the striving for. And so that's why he talks about, like, you do want to keep that just out beyond, because if you get it, if you actually got it, I remember hearing Jim Carrey say one time, take it with a grain of salt if you want, but he said, my wish for everyone is that you would attain every dream you've ever had in your entire life. Your biggest dreams. I wish for everyone that you would get it. Because if you got it, you would realize that that's not the point. And that's the only way you would realize it. And it I don't know how many people have ever felt like they were reaching for a goal and then actually got the full goal. It does feel good for a moment, but it really is like buying a new car. I mean, that fades really fast. Krista talks a lot. She's talked forever about how humans are made for struggle. And if we have no struggle, do not worry. We will find it.
And that was one of the comments on the side. So Jordan Peterson didn't talk about this in his lecture, but I mean, if I want to consume as much as I possibly can while I'm on this platform, right? And so I'm even reading like the comments that people are making, and then I even like completely geeked out one time, and I left a comment, but anyway, someone said, "Is this what's happening in the United States right now?" In that our lives are historically easier than anyone's lives have ever been. The amount of wealth that the average American has is just unfathomable if you look at the history of humanity, and you just look around the globe even right now, right? And it's like it's almost like it has become so comfortable for us that what we are doing is creating strife. We're creating like moral outrage about things that even 10 years ago, I think nobody would have been like furious about. But it's like we can't handle being comfortable. And so instead what we do is we generate enemies, we create strife, we tear things down, we begin to destroy it. Like, and I don't know, part of my problem is I'm just not finding joy in the things that I used to find joy in. And Denise the other day, so like, for example, and I don't know if this connects or not, but as I was talking, it popped into my head. Here's how I got to where I am when I just made that comment, right? Because it does seem like that just came out of left field. The Olympics. Right now, there seems to be moral outrage, and it just seems so fabricated to me, because one of the Olympic athletes said, it's difficult right now sort of representing, like, he goes, I'm feeling like mixed emotions right now representing America because I'm not really thrilled with everything that's happening in my country. And that like got such a massive backlash of he's un-American, he needs to be taken off the team, like all of this stuff. And I thought at the last Olympics, just say 4 years ago, if somebody had said something like that, we'd have been like, it wouldn't even made the news. But now it's like we're just looking for ways to be just so angry. And so I thought about that as we were talking. And then I thought about like, I haven't watched much of the Olympics. In the past, like years, I would have tried to consume, just like watch as much as I possibly could, right? Especially the winter. I've always enjoyed the Winter Olympics more than the Summer Olympics. I just do. I didn't watch the Super Bowl this year. I just had zero interest in it. And it wasn't like I was trying to be like anti, I just wasn't interested. Yeah. And at first I thought, well, maybe it has to do with I just don't really care about either one of the teams. Yeah. But there was it just held no interest to me. And it was funny because Denise, she was like, oh, are you too smart now to enjoy sports? And I was like, no. I would be very curious to know, like, if someone could tell me, like, psychologically why they think this is happening to me. But I just don't find sports right now. I enjoy getting together for the social aspect of it, maybe still. Like, we're going to go this weekend. Denise and Robbie and I are going to go watch Ohio State basketball because they're here in Nashville for a tournament, and that'll be fun. We're going to go out. We're going to go see a game. But to just sit on my couch and watch a game, even the Super Bowl. Yeah. There's about 30 other things that I could, right off the top of my head, tell you I'd rather do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm not going to diagnose you. That's not really my my area.
I have a few friends that might.
I don't know if I wouldn't make any comment about the general culture or society when it comes to the Super Bowl, and if people are more interested in it or less interested in it. I think that that would be relying way too much on the anecdote, and I haven't looked at any numbers and compared them
right,
or anything like that. But it does strike me that I was just telling our youngest that the Super Bowl is interesting because it is it's a cultural tradition that we have, and it's something that we don't have very many of those. We have a couple that throughout the year. Christmas is one that's pretty universal. Whether you're, really, whether you're a Christian or you're an atheist or you're a Buddhist or you're a Muslim or you're, Jewish or whatever, virtually everyone, quote unquote, celebrates Christmas in some way because it's a cultural tradition. There's not any. I don't think there's any other ones throughout the in the United States. Maybe the 4th of July. But the Super Bowl is an interesting one because it unites everyone. You can kind of get an idea that virtually everywhere, almost everyone's sitting down and watching it at the same time, right? Obviously, it's not everyone, but it's virtually. And so I think that's interesting. And if that breaks down, I think that is telling. I wouldn't again, make any kind of diagnosis from that. But if it did start to break down, I think that would be telling in some way. It'd be notable. But this is, I think that it's not probably surprising that you and I are talking about this in this way. This whole you need to be striving, but then once you get there, then you're like, what am I doing now? And you kind of want to break it so that you have to strive again. Because yes, you and I are separated by 10 years, but we're both middle-aged. You're kind of middle-aged. I'm kind of beginning middle-aged, but we're both middle-aged. And that's I think that's probably generally a universal experience of people who are middle-aged is kind of getting to okay, I've kind of gotten a general level of success in whatever vocation I'm in. I've raised my kids. As long as everything's stable, I'm in a good marriage. My wife and I love each other. We like each other. We've got a stable of friends. We've got some, you get to the point where you kind of influence in your community. People care about what you have to say, which gives you a level of esteem. That's a thing that you strive for when you're younger. You've got this stability. I've got a car that's not going to break down tomorrow, and I've got a house that I own. And maybe even if I don't own it, whatever.
Chickens that are providing eggs.
You got chickens that are providing eggs. And you kind of look around and go okay, there's I think it's very easy is my point to get to that place and feel a level of, just uncertainty. What should I be doing now? And what's the stereotype for especially men who are in middle age? They start breaking stuff, right? They spend too much money. They get a divorce. They go have an affair. They, start drinking too much. Whatever. That's the stereotype. And I think the reason it's a stereotype is because that is the
midlife crisis.
The midlife crisis is it's an era. This is our era. We're not the up and comers, right? I'm not 23 years old and hoping somebody will respect me, right? Now I'm like, what the hell's the point? What really should I be doing here? And please help me to not break these things now that it's good, I don't know. That's not really an answer to your question, but it's just something I was thinking about when we were talking.
Well, I think it's part of the reason that continue to put challenges out there for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we acknowledge this, if we see this, we agree that there's a truth to this within just again all the different psychological, theological, whatever. There seems to be the human experience that the distance from the ideal, or even achieving your ideal, are both being too far from your ideal, or actually being in your ideal, are both just as dangerous. Right? What that should tell us is that you need to continue to create adventure for yourself. Continue to push yourself. It's probably the reason that, I'm now trying to take time to walk over 100 miles on the Appalachian Trail.
And
right?
These things might seem arbitrary to somebody who's outside of, and of course they would, to anybody who's outside of you, but you know that it's not. It is the thing that you can see in front of you. And now it's a challenge. And,
Well, and then, and because of that, then I need to drop. I think I still need to drop like 26 pounds. That's my goal.
Yeah.
So that I can do that next goal.
Yeah.
And then from the next goal, what's the next goal?
Right.
Yeah. So
we just watched Fight Club with Reed.
Okay.
Ellis was out of town for the fall retreat. And so we were like, hey, what's a movie we've been wanting to show Reed?
Yeah. What did you think of that?
And he loved it. He said he liked it a lot. But there's the line in there where Tyler has been started recruiting people into the house, right? And then he's recruiting them now for Project Mayhem. And Mayhem, my wife is she's gonna yell at me for saying Mayhem. Anyway, and he says, well, I guess at this point it was for Fight Club still, but he says Fight Club was the reason that you clipped your fingernails. It was the reason that you shaved your head. It was the reason that you worked out. It was, and I was just thinking about that when you're talking here. You set yourself this goal. It gives you a reason for trying to drop weight. It gives you a reason to drink less. It gives you a reason to go work out. It gives, that then you get those feelings like I'm on the path. When I'm doing this, I'm on the path. Or I've messed up and I've fallen off the path, but at least now I know where the path is, and I have an idea of that, and I'm progressing towards something. It's hard for me because my temperament is to find what will work and then stay there forever, and I also have this strong affinity for mediocrity. At least that's how I've always described it. But again, Peterson kind of gave me a different way of reframing that. When I say like I spoke or thought in defense of mediocrity, it really was this idea of like, I'm gonna do something. That's my deal with myself. When it comes to like, again, I'll go back to working out as it's just an easy one. My deal with myself was I would do something, and when I didn't want to do it anymore, I would stop. But then I would be consistent with that, but I wasn't ever going to push myself. And what I find is if I just do that, at some point I want to push myself. And that's not why I was doing it. I was just doing it so that I would have consistency, but then I would want to push myself. And that's really what he's talking about also. So it's not exactly mediocrity, but I say it kind of tongue in cheek. But anyway.
Common ground?
I think the whole episode was kind of common ground this time.
I think so too. All right. Well, thank you for indulging me on that topic.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Living on Common Ground. Please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. You can also find a link to our social in the description. The more people we have living on common ground, the better the world will be.